Will he or won't he? That was the most critical question at last year's Munich Security Conference as Russian President Vladimir Putin pushed troops closer and closer to Ukraine's border. On February 24th, 2022, we learned the real answer.
Distinct sound of explosions on the horizon here in Kiev.
Gunfire and explosions have been heard.
Kharkiv residents scramble to find shelter as Russia's brutal assault unfolds.
For many of us, this act of rogue aggression was not a surprise. What happened next, however, might have been, especially to the Russian president himself. The first European war in decades breathed new life into NATO, a transatlantic alliance that had been struggling to remain relevant since the end of the Cold War. Do you remember this?
NATO is obsolete, it's old, it's fat, it's sloppy.
While few said it as bluntly as then-candidate Trump, he wasn't alone in his criticism of the alliance. But in 2022, NATO got its groove back. Sweden and Finland applied for membership after decades of thinking it was safer to stay neutral. Germany announced a huge increase in defense spending and walked back their own red line of sending weapons to conflict zones. In 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, and only 3 of NATO's then 28 members met the target of spending 2% of GDP on defense. Now, 9 countries do, 19 more have plans to hit 2% by 2024.
2% is increasingly seen as a floor, not as a ceiling.
It's a hard argument to make, as global inflation limits the buying power of those military budgets. And despite the cohesion, there is tension brewing. NATO members have very different ideas about how far to go in supporting Ukraine. They blame each other for delays in weapon deliveries, and Turkey, of course, still holding up Finland and Sweden's NATO membership. Not to mention there's a limit to global trust and information sharing.